we have the talk about the name of the area?
What it should be.
Well, I think it's interesting just because you.
I've already used like all of the names.
Right. That's kind of what I was getting at. And I wasn't actually going to ask this question, but then I was like, you know what? Let's play today. Like, let's have some fun. Let's go to a party. Like, it's interesting. Funny story, because you guys talked about Start Peninsula as how you guys had met. Like, my thought of having Start Norfolk was a regional event because Norfolk was an area that people knew outside of the area. People want to push back at that and say it's one city, it can't be anything like that. And actually, it's funny. I found this in a box the other day.
I almost wore my Start Norfolk shirt.
So it wasn't about being one city, it's that it was like, no, this is a regional thing. And then people decide that because it was just, Norfolk was in the name that, if you live in Chesapeake, you can't come. I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. Like, I'm just looking at this from an outside perspective. If you go to New York City and you say, oh, I'm from Hampton Roads, they're going to say, well, where the hell is that?
What's that? Yeah.
Right.
It's 3 hours south of DC. Like, that's the reference point.
That's usually what I say. And so there seems to be some sort of big push. It's now in the name of your business, 757. Is that just a marketing thing? Like, but and the reason I ask is because you did use other vernaculars recently, monikers, in some of your stuff. Like, what do you say? Does it matter?
So I'm an equal opportunist brander person. So I use in my marketing materials specifically when it comes to marketing, I try to hit every term that could be used to describe this area. You'll see on like the 757 Day website that it says in the opening paragraph, it uses like every single name for the place. And that's because there are people who are very tied to their name of the region. The only thing I didn't use is Tidewater because I think that's just falling out of fashion, even though a lot of the legacy businesses have Tidewater in them in some way. But the naming thing is very interesting. From what I understand, Hampton Roads has Hampton in it because Hampton wouldn't agree to a regional name if they weren't in it. And, the Roads is a nautical term. So I think Hampton Roads is a really nice name, but there has no brand recognition. Now, 757, from everything that we're reading about the branding initiative and the sort of like sports world, right? They'd say that 757 is recognized outside of the area as its own region. If you put in hashtag 757 whatever, you get a lot of responses. So it's used a lot. But it's also an aircraft. So you get a lot of pictures of airplanes too if you look for 757. Which isn't a bad thing for our region, right? Because we have a lot of aviation here. So it's really interesting, this notion of like, what is the identity of Hampton Roads? And I think there's a lot of organizations, or particularly, the Alliance right now and 757 Proud, trying to put out there do this branding push for the region.
Do you think we're getting somewhere?
I don't know. So with Made in 757, I called it that because I think it sounds cool. But my goal for that company long term is not to be just a Hampton Roads company, but to also take this sort of local discovery marketplace concept and try to franchise it out to other sort of smaller places and in a way become an Etsy competitor without actually being Etsy, because Etsy is trying to be everything to everybody. But if you focus on your local community, then you really activate those local makers, and people like to go to craft fairs and buy from people that live next door to them and that kind of thing. So, that's the larger concept. I think Hampton Roads, starting in the 757, calling it Made in 757 is just this first node, but it's 757 for a reason, right? 757 is that, amorphous blob that sometimes contains 7 localities, sometimes contains 13.
Yeah, it depends on the day, right?
Right.
Does it even matter?
It could be a mega region, right, up to Richmond. The 757-804.
It's a long phone number. Does it matter? Does the moniker matter? Does any of these things matter? You're a marketing person. Are we just, is it a fight that's stupid, or does it matter in the end of the day?
I don't know. I don't know if it matters. I can't answer.
It seems like it's the biggest fight that people have.
Right, but they're directing their energy towards something which, instead of sort of creating, this is that top-down, bottom-up thing, right? Instead of creating an identity and bestowing it upon a region, like look for it from the people who are here and capture what's here. And I think the 757 is doing that more than the Hampton Roads is doing that, or more than Chesapeake, or more than coastal Virginia. Coastal Virginia feels very, like I mean, I'm sorry, because I know that the magazine is named this for a reason, but it feels very much like it's a magazine like luxury lifestyles type of name. I know, that's what I'm saying. So, and that's not to badmouth coastal Virginia as a name, because it is descriptive. It says what it is. So every one of them has benefits. Coastal Virginia, Hampton Roads, the 757, Tidewater.
I think that the interesting thing with this is, and I know I don't want this to be taken out of context, and I know inevitably it will, because people are just going to chop sound bites or whatever, but we've transitioned ourselves from a point where maybe 20 years ago, whatever the number is, businesses invested in the next generation of businesses. And then slowly, local governments then started taking on that role of economic development. And now if you look at like the funding sources of a lot of chambers, it comes from local government. And then if they're the ones that are contributing, then they have a vote, or they have a say-so in what's being discussed, the direction moving forward. And we really, in my opinion, we need to transition away from that and change the mentality of this area, in the sense of, hey, if there's a merger or an acquisition, if you go public, you have to reinvest in the community. Give 1% to a fund so that we can then, the businesses are investing into one another. I mean, if you look at, like, we tried doing something forever as a region, nothing ever happened. Pharrell comes to town, he just makes it happen in an instant, because he doesn't need anyone else's money. He doesn't need cooperation from anybody.
Right.
And the next thing you know, with something in the water, I don't know what Virginia Beach contributed to it from
I think they were presented with this amazing package, and they were like, yes, please. Like, how could you say no?
Right. And we have to come together as a group, and say, look, we're grateful you set the stage to do this. We couldn't have done it without your initial support, but now we got to start being more and more self-sufficient and reinvesting in one another.
Well, I think it would be one thing if he lived here, right? And now we know Missy Elliott still has property here in Portsmouth. I know that because my cousin services her fish tanks. So like there are people who have, who are, big names who are still here. I think Wanda Sykes was from Portsmouth. I don't know if she still like lives around here, but there's a lot of really amazing cultural icons that have come from this area. Allen Iverson, the Wire. You guys know The Wire? This is one that I found out recently. You ever watch the series The Wire?
Takes place in Baltimore.
Detective Kima. She went to Warwick High School in Newport News.
Well, John Locke lives here from Lost.
What?
John Locke from Lost lives here.
Okay, so like
Bob Saget lives
famous
here.
people,
like Vick. I mean, there's plenty of people.
We've got plenty of famous people in this area. Maybe there's something about this area that makes them want to blend in and not stand out and use their cultural power to change things, or maybe like it's calm and it's relaxing, and that's a vibe that we need to harness, right? That you come to Hampton Roads to blend in. I don't know. Like,
well, and that's so it's so interesting you say that. We're rattled off all these people that are okay with this kind of being in the background doing their thing, but one of the most interesting topics or things that Brad Feld talked about when he did his talk was how this can't be something that's a hierarchy. And it's like, we just all have to work together, and it can't be just one person or one organization that makes all this stuff happen.
Well, another example is, I think in Detroit, or where is QuickBooks from? Somebody find out where Quicken the company. Cleveland, I thought it was like Detroit area.
They have naming rights to the stadium, so that's why I figured.
Anyway, the founder of Quicken reinvested and built this super block in his downtown. Kind of similar to what's going on now in Norfolk.
Or Vegas.
What?
Tony Hsieh in Vegas, in downtown Vegas.
Yeah, so they've had these like local hometown heroes come back and reinvest, but they live here and they reinvested. And so like we do have Grow, please, why am I forgetting his name? Yeah, with 757, with the
startup
assembly. Thank you.
Assembly.
Yeah, so I mean that's going to be a really cool feature, focal point, whatever. But it's difficult because we still don't have the other infrastructure that brings people to that point. And you know, without going on a tangent about local transit and transportation options and all of that kind of stuff, I mean, we're still a disparate group of places where people have to take a car 45 minutes to get from one place to the other, and it is difficult to cross-pollinate when you don't want to sit in traffic for a half an hour to do it. So take that.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, so then we kind of go full circle where maybe 757, it's online, people can contribute, buy and sell.
Exactly.
So everything works around.
I've been directly involved within our entrepreneurial community for years. And the most common question I get is, Tim, I want to get involved, but I don't know what events I should attend. Well, Startwheel eliminates that pain point because we consolidate all the events you should attend into a single calendar. Now you'll be in the know and see where to spend your time. Gone is the need to search multiple websites and calendars. Just head to startwheel.org and see for yourself. That's startwheel.org.